Okay, so the thing about me is that I'm a glutton, right? A culture vulture, if you will. I be consuming content, and I know that you be too, because you're here. You should know what's worth your time. So this is everything I read, watched, and listened to last winter. I have informed, immaculate opinions, and I will let you know what you should be watching to or listening to as well, or reading. Let's go. This video is undoubtedly going to be long. Skip to the parts that you think are interesting. Do whatever you need to do. I'm Christina Sophia. Without further ado, let's get started. I honestly didn't read much in the winter. I read 2 Sally Rooney books. I read Beautiful World, Where Are You? And Intermezzo, because I made a video called A Beginner's Guide to Sally Rooney. So if you ever wanted to know anything about Sally Rooney or why people like her so much, or you only know about normal people and you want to learn a little bit more, like literally whatever, everything is in that video. I spent so long making it. I love that video. And those were the only 2 novels I finished that in what was technically winter. So that's kind of it. I don't really want to go over them again. Like, watch that video to know what they're about. I do think both of them are worth your time. I also started to get into Substack and saw this essay by Casey McQuiston, who's one of my favorite authors. They wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, most notably I Kissed Shara Wheeler, One Last Stop, and then last summer, The Pairing. I'm sure I'm missing something. But they posted something on their Substack about The Pairing. There's a character in The Pairing, and I want to be delicate with the language that I use because the way that they wrote this character is very intentional, and that's kind of what the Substack essay that they wrote is about. Somebody critiqued The Pairing, but they critiqued it in a way that could be potentially harmful to Casey and the community that they are a part of, that they write about. And they were like, okay, I actually kind of can't have you say this thing about me because you didn't understand what I was trying to do with my book. And actually this community, being the trans community, is really important to me. The questions that they asked that I thought were interesting were, do we, like as in the audience, have the patience to allow a character to unfold over a couple hundred pages? If we're not getting it right away, like, can we trust the author enough to lead us through their development? They say, and I guess, what must I prove to earn your good faith? Meaning, what does an author have to do in order for us to kind of suspend our disbelief or trust them when we go into a story? I think it's a really valid question, and it can apply to literally any piece of media created by a person. One of my favorite quotes from the essay was, and quite frankly, if I have to Trojan horse my gender fucky romance into a straight person's grocery cart, I'll do it. So good on you, Casey. So if anybody here likes A24, which, I mean, come on, you probably do. Celine Song released a screenplay book, or I guess A24 released a screenplay book, I don't know, that has everything to do with past lives. So it's stills from the movie. It's the original script in English and in Korean. There's a 4th part that only exists, I think it only exists on the IndieWire website, because this is where I read this interview. That is an exclusive conversation with Celine Song about past lives. It's called Celine Song Explains Why Her Past Lives is Not at All About a Love Triangle. And I just adored it. There are so many beautiful meditations on how people can change people, what the story is truly about, how many different yous live inside of you, who knows what part of you. It's about asking what if, and learning to reconcile the what if in yourself. And after reading it, it made me want to watch Past Lives again, and I will be doing that this week because it gave me almost a new perspective on the movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of that year. I love Past Lives so much. If you like Past Lives, if you like Celine Song, watch that. I'm very excited for Celine Song's new movie. Guys, Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal, Celine Song, A24. What more could you want? I don't like to watch trailers for movies I know I'm going to see, but I did watch like 30 seconds of that trailer, and it looks gorgeous. It also looks like very stylized in a way that Past Lives wasn't. Like, Past Lives was incredibly stylized, but it felt like very naturalistic. This one, maybe it's the cut of the trailer, but I don't know. It's giving stylized, but I don't want to go so far as to say editorial, but like in a different way. It's very cool. I'm also realizing that I read short stories and essays by Sally Rooney as well. Again, I won't get into all of them here. I think the most notable one is probably At the Clinic. If you like Normal People and watched it and read it, there's a short story called At the Clinic that was Sally Rooney's first venture into whom Marianne and Connell were as characters. And the reason why normal people exist is because she wrote that short story, saw the things that she was putting in it that had to do with Connell and Marianne's backstory, and then wanted to make a whole book about it. It just kind of turned into a novel. Honestly, that's all I read. I've been reading a lot more recently, but that's all for winter. Okay, for what I'm listening to. In terms of podcasts, I just really recommend What Now with Trevor Noah. I think that the conversations that he's having on his podcast are so awesome and important. And he does it with Christiana Mbakwe Medina and Josh Johnson. And Josh Johnson is another person who I've been watching like crazy. An insane output of comedy. It's truly crazy how much content, like comedy content, he releases. He'll put out hours like weekly. And he's done it for like a while now, like over a year at least. And I've been watching his comedy for years, and he just keeps getting better and better. So What Now is incredible. The conversations that they're having are really important, I think. And if I'm going to recommend episodes to listen to, there's one called Humankind or Human Evil with Rutger Bregman, and it's talking about that. Are humans inherently good or bad? We talk about capitalism, and socialism, the tools that we need to possibly make the world a better place, etc., etc. There's also an incredible one called No One Told Trevor He Was Hosting the Grammys, and he did this last year too with Questlove. He kind of like went over what happened during the Grammys, but it's like a 2-hour podcast just about all of the inside baseball about how the Grammys happen, and the fact that Trevor didn't even know he was hosting this year until way late in the process. And it's him, the executive producer of the Grammys, and I'm not really sure who the third person is to the Grammys, but he is Trevor's friend and does work in the business, so I'm not really sure like what his position was in the show. But I think it's fascinating if you care about stuff like that. If you watch like one of the best Grammys in recent history, and they talk about why they think that is. They talk about who they thought had the hardest job during the Grammys in terms of the performers, like which performer they felt really had a lot of responsibility and how she pulled it off, things that were going on behind the scenes, things that were going on live, the reason why Trevor makes some of the jokes that he makes. In the one with Questlove, it was the same year that they did like the 50 years of hip hop thing. So Questlove was in charge of like making that entire sequence happen. And he was talking about how like it was so difficult to do because like certain rappers have beef with other rappers. It's like, obviously everybody knows that. So if this person was going to do it, then this person wasn't going to do it. And if this guy won this award, then that guy was pulling out. It was like a whole thing. So it's really fun to learn about. I also recently discovered Fightmaster, and I discovered them because they were a guest on literally any podcast that I listened to. I just kept seeing them on the internet, and I was like, okay, I just need to know who this person is. They're an actor, most known for Grey's Anatomy. They're also a musician and a writer and a producer and a director and a comedian. Also, like, really notably, they did like Second City in Chicago and then did Boom Chicago in Amsterdam. And I really liked their episode of the Made It Out podcast where they were talking about gender and gender identity, what masculinity means to them, how it can be in service of the feminine. They were on Drew Afualo's podcast. I really liked that one too. Funny as hell. Guys, they're so funny. I've also been listening to their music. They were just on Drew Afualo's podcast again. Fightmaster. Let's get into the tunes. I'm only doing January, February, and March. January was a big listening month for me. I listened to 1,416 minutes worth of music. My top artist was Tegan and Sara. My top song was Call Me After Midnight by Bleachers, which is still, I think, my top played song of the year. And my top album was Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain. Father figure George Michael, of course. Lotus Eater Phineas, underrated. Such a good tune. It absolutely slaps. That album's fun. That's a great one. Bruises Off the Peach, Ryan Beatty. Calico, one of the best albums of that year. So beautiful. Some of the other artists that I was listening to was Phineas, The Japanese House, and Paramore. And these were my top albums. Also, y'all, I've been on that Joni Mitchell wave since before Amanda Seyfried did that dulcimer trick. Oh, it was beautiful. Yes, I know about the blackface. If y'all don't know, Joni Mitchell did blackface multiple times. I know, I'm aware. Did you guys know that one time Joni Mitchell said if she wrote an autobiography, the first line of it would be, "I was the only black man in the room." Because she believes that she's had experiences as a black man. Writes great music though. Anyway, yeah, I'm aware. February. My top artist was Dora. My top song was Ragdoll. And my top album, surprisingly to me, was Short and Sweet Deluxe. I guess that makes sense. I was listening to the deluxe songs a lot. Some of the other artists that I was listening to, Doechii, Sky Ferreira, and Halsey. And I think it's really funny that Sky Ferreira is on there because it's just the one song from Baby Girl that I kept listening to over and over and over again because it's a fucking banger. My top songs, Ragdoll, Real Love Baby, Father John Misty. Real Love Baby. Ooh, don't keep me waiting. I got Lucky by Dora. Leash from the Baby Girl soundtrack. That's the Sky Ferreira song. And I revisited all the things she said. I think you pronounce it Tattoo. It's this Russian duo that were so big. I'm pretty sure they won Eurovision and then they played at the Olympics and then they dissolved. But this song is still awesome and I never realized that it's gay. Like it's about a girl having feelings for another girl. All the things she said running through my head. And she's like, did I cross the line? Like, is she feeling the same thing I'm feeling? I'm like, wait, is this... I know what you are. And then my other top albums, Alligator Bites Never Heal, Doechii, What a Relief, Katie Gavin, who's the lead singer of Muna, my favorite band. Muna is my favorite band. It's a beautiful album. The Baby Girl original song. It's literally just that one song. And again, Night Ride Home. And finally in March, a big listening month for me, 1,534 minutes, which is not normal really for me. A lot of HAIM. I revisited Something to Tell You, which was the top album. And then my top song, of course, was The Giver by Chappell Roan. Some other artists, Muna, again, favorite band. Billie Eilish, I went back to Hit Me Hard and Soft, one of the best albums of the decade. The way that her and Phineas crafted that album, every song is the world that it needs to be, and it's all part of one continuous great body of work that's all in conversation with each other. Her vocals are better than they've ever been. It's so beautiful. I fucking love Hit Me Hard and Soft. Great album. I listened to a lot of the 1975 randomly, and I started to try to get into Role Model, and I like his stuff. These are my top songs, The Giver, and then a bunch of HAIM. Walking Away, underrated pop song, so good. And my top albums, Something to Tell You by HAIM, Live at the Greek Theater, Muna, Hit Me Hard and Soft, Billie Eilish, RX, Role Model, and Live at Radio City, Bleachers. Let's go into Watched. To start, I watched poetry performance by Sara K, and it's a spoken word poetry performance. It's like 5 minutes on YouTube. You can watch it. Please watch it. And it's called To the Person Who Broke Into My Car and Stole My Vibrator. It's fucking awesome. It's about that. It's funny, but it's also about like womanhood, how much space you take up as a woman, what you want. It's great. Watch it. It's good. In terms of TV shows, I've been watching Grey's Anatomy for the very first time, and I'm documenting my progress on TikTok. I'm on season 10 now. I really love Christina Yang. I think that she is one of the best television characters I've ever seen. Sandra Oh is one of my favorite actors. Like, truly, she's one of my absolute all-time favorite actors. I love her so much. I have such a place in my heart for her. I love Killing Eve. I loved The Chair on Netflix. I was devastated when that didn't get picked up for another season. Such a good show. And I think that she does, like, a masterful job, truly, of being so sincere and earnest and like knowing how to handle dramatic moments and then being so whip smart funny like in the next breath. Like, she's amazing. She's so deft. I love her. So Christina Yang is my favorite. I also really like Ellen Pompeo as Meredith Grey. I like Ellen Pompeo. She's like doing a bunch of press for her show that's coming out, and like the more I listen to her talk, I'm like, oh man, I think I really fuck with Ellen Pompeo. But I was thinking about maybe not watching anymore after this. I don't know. I wanted to skip. I was like, I like Amelia a lot. I know about the Kai and Amelia storyline because I started to get into ER Fightmaster, which is a thing that we'll talk about in a second. And I love ER Fightmaster. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I want to watch their thing, but I don't know if I want to watch 8 more seasons because it happens in season 18. And I said, guys, can I skip? And then the internet said, absolutely not. You absolute crazy person. No, you cannot skip. You must watch it. So I started making videos about it. Go over there to see more of my thoughts. I'm also getting into Abbott Elementary. It's so fucking funny. Quinta Bronson is incredible. I love this representation. I love the specific representation about this specific place, Philadelphia. Now getting to what is undoubtedly going to be the longest fucking section of this video, the movies that I watched. Okay, I watched 23 movies in winter. And the first movie that I watched, it was January 2nd, 2025, the first movie that I watched to ring in the new year was City of Bones, the Mortal Instruments City of Bones, and it's directed by Harold Zwartz. I could not think of a better start to the year. I can't think of a movie that's a better start to the year. So if you don't know, the Mortal Instruments City of Bones is a movie based off of the book written by Cassandra Clare, and the Mortal Instruments is the first series in her larger Shadowhunter Chronicles, but the Mortal Instruments is kind of like where the Shadowhunter Chronicles started. It's a chosen one YA fantasy about Clary Frey. It opens on her birthday. She's turning 16. She wants to go to this club with her best friend Simon, and her overprotective mom thinks it's a bad idea, but you know, she lets her go anyway. She goes. She sees something truly harrowing, and it just bursts open this door to the shadow world, and she finds out that she's a shadow hunter, which is like part human, part angel. And then her mother goes missing, and it becomes a plot to uncover like where her mom is, and also a bigger plot to uncover where this very specific object that's like super significant to the shadow hunter world is. And the big bad is, his name is Valentine. And honestly, I think this was a really solid movie of its genre, and I think that people shit on it for no reason. Well, not no reason. There is a little bit of reason. I think people shit on it a little bit too much. I remember being in the fandom when this movie was happening, and I do remember a lot of people expressing their frustration about it. But to that I say, it is a movie. It is not a book. And you can't fit everything in a book in a movie. Is this movie perfect? No. Even with the changes, like even with the grace that it is a movie and not a book, no, it's not perfect. Like, there's some portal stuff. It's not how portals work. It's hilarious. There are some lines that are like truly so funny. But overall, I think it was a really solid movie of its genre. I think that I'm sad that it didn't get a sequel. It was greenlit for a sequel, and then it didn't get one. Like, for some reason, they just like didn't make it. But I think that's a shame. Honestly, they are those characters to me. When I think of Jace, Clary, and Simon, I think of Vecna, Emily in Paris, and Klaus Hargreaves. I'm just a girl. Then the exact same day, like literally right after we watched City of Bones, we watched Divergent. The second movie I watched in January was Divergent, directed by Neil Berger. Guys, I don't know, man. I was in Virginia with my two friends, and we felt like some nostalgia, you know, to ring in the new year. We went to the past. So if you don't know Divergent, this is another book to movie adaptation. Came out around the same time, I think, when this like big boom of like YA book to movie adaptations was like going crazy. It's a dystopian universe where civilization is broken up into factions, and those factions are based on different core values. And we are with Beatrice, who becomes Triss, who is in Abnegation, which is the faction that is all about selflessness and self-denial. And there is a choosing ceremony when you reach a certain age where you get to choose whether or not you stay in the faction that you grew up in, or you pick a different faction. And if you pick a different faction, then like everybody you knew from your original faction, you can never speak to them again. There's a test that you have to take to help you make the choice, and usually it just like affirms whatever faction you were born into. Like, you take the test and it's like, yeah, that's pretty much right, your Abnegation. Beatrice takes it, and it turns out she's Divergent, and that's bad. That's really bad. Nobody likes Divergence. The government wants you to be in a specific faction. If you're Divergent, it means that you test for multiple factions, so that's bad. She picks Dauntless, this like rebel war group, complete opposite of Abnegation, and then this like huge government plot to seek out all Divergents and destroy them starts to happen, and it becomes about that. Again, another solid movie of its genre. The first one was great, and then it like fell off. The last one was supposed to be 2 parts, and they didn't even bother making the second part because nobody was watching it. However, it was really fun to be a part of the book community for that release. Like, it was really awesome to be online and see, like, I remember Sasha Alsberg, who was a booktuber I watched all the time, was an extra, and it was such a big deal, and everybody was talking about it on BookTube. It was like for real shit. I missed that. That was fun. Okay, the next movie I watched in January was A Complete Unknown, directed by James Mangold, and it's a Bob Dylan biopic. I'm sure you've heard of it, with Timothée Chalamet. It covers the beginning and rise of his career career and stops when he begins to pivot into something else at a very important and contentious time in American history, like during the civil rights movement. It's the 60s. I really liked this. I liked it a lot, actually. I especially loved the supporting performances. I thought Timothée Chalamet did an incredible job. I think he's an amazing actor, of course. But I was so blown away by Ed Norton and by, oh my God, Monica Barbaro in this movie. I'm kind of obsessed with her. She plays Joan Baez, who is another folk singer, who is so important, and not enough people know who she is. Like, we need to know Joan Baez's name. I'm a musician. I have been for like ever, and I am particularly interested in this point in American history. Obviously, and Joan Baez is someone who I think is an absolute rock star. Like, she's incredible, and the way that Monica completely captured her energy really enamored me. And Elle Fanning too, she plays Sylvie, who's like Bob Dylan's original love interest. And there's a moment in the movie, no spoilers, there's a moment in the movie where Bob Dylan and Joan Baez are singing together on stage, and Sylvie is looking at them singing, and it's this like beautiful moment in the film. It's like so gorgeous. It feels like a centerpiece of the film. They talked about it in a YouTube video. I watched the hell out of that. I loved listening to them talk about how they filmed that, but it's got so much tension in it, and the relationships that are in this movie really, really ground it and really allow us to have perspective into Bob Dylan's life as a musician, but also his life as a person, and it becomes more intimate that way. I really enjoyed the depiction of America at this point in history. It was the backdrop of everything in the movie. It was subtle, but it was there, and it was significant. And that makes a lot of sense because folk music acted and still acts as a reaction to the political climate, and you can't tell the story and not tell that story. So it did feel very American in that way, and I loved that. Okay, and then I watched a fun one. I watched One of Them Days, directed by Issa Rae, starring SZA and Keke Palmer. It's like a buddy comedy, just like a straightforward comedy, which I find so refreshing. It's about these two friends, Drew, who is Keke Palmer's character, and Alyssa, who's SZA's character, and they have to come up with their rent by the end of the day. It's like $1,600 or something by the end of the day because SZA's terrible boyfriend like stole it. So it's just them going on this wild goose chase to like get this money and doing a bunch of ridiculous shit to get the money, and it's just fun. It's just good fun. It's a straightforward comedy with a tight structure and such charismatic performances by Keke Palmer and SZA. Like, I didn't know SZA could act like that. Listen, she killed it. She did a great job in this movie, seriously. So I salute Issa Rae now and forever. The next like slew of movies I watched or things I watched had basically all to do with Tig Norato, who is an American comedian who is one of my favorite comedians. I think she's kind of a genius. And I guess I just kind of got hyper fixated. I've known who she was for years, but I like really got into her stuff and became fascinated by her comedy and just wanted to know more. So I just watched a bunch of Tig Notaro shit. The first thing I watched was Knock Knock, It's Tig Notaro, and that was directed by Chris Wilka and Michael LaHaye. Sorry. Okay, so this is a documentary about Tig where she goes on tour, but before she goes on tour, she puts out a call to all of her fans, and this is like years ago. So this is not like social media vibes. This is this is like putting out a call to her fans on the internet to say, if you have a place for me to perform comedy, I would like to perform comedy there. Please don't make it a traditional comedy space. So she was performing in people's backyards. She was performing on a dock, I think, like a little attic, like a community center, just things that were on the side of the road, like things that were not a traditional comedy space. I feel like that is a perfect example to kind of like get you primed for the way that Tig's brain works. So it's her and her opening act, John Doerr, going across the country to random intimate spaces to do comedy. I am really fascinated by comedy and the art of joke writing and comedic performance and stand-up and even improv and stuff like that. So I had a really good time with this. I found it really fascinating to watch them do these shows and watch a joke work one night that doesn't work another night, watch them talk about it, watch them talk about the temperature of the audience and how to kind of work with that. There were some hiccups for sure. Tig had a big health scare that I'll get into later. It's like a huge part of like Tig Notaro lore, but it was fun to watch, or maybe not fun, interesting to watch their like show must go on mentality and like pushing through it anyway. Also, it's just really funny. This whole thing was really funny and super ridiculous, and yeah, it's great. I wouldn't watch this without knowing more about Tig Notaro. Hold on. So the next thing I watched was Boyish Girl Interrupted, and this is like the same thing. I wouldn't watch this comedy special without knowing a little bit about Tig first. This was directed by Tig Notaro and Jamie Eliezer Karras. Sorry. I just think Tig Notaro is a genius. If you have backstory for this one, it'll make it so much better. I'll get to it in a second, I promise. One of the things I love the most about Tig Notaro's stand-up is that it feels like she's getting the audience in on the joke in like a game or like a social experiment. They become a part of the joke, but never in a way that's like patronizing or condescending, and it never feels mean-spirited. I wrote down, with Tig Notaro, everything is all in good fun. It seems like she just is genuinely excited and is like, oh my god, what if I did this? There's a truly iconic moment in this special that when I watched it, I was like, she's one of the greats. It's crazy what she does. I'm not going to spoil it. Again, you should like know more about her before you watch it if you're gonna watch it, and you should. It's a great special. But when she did it, I was so fascinated by that decision. Like, how do you make a decision like that? What goes into it? How are you ushering the audience into that decision? Like, what are you doing up until the point that you do that to bring the audience in? How do you handle that after it happened? How in her comedic brain she thought it would affect or not affect the show, and what she felt that she had to do after to support the show continuing. I like the inside baseball of it all. I just, oh god, comedy to me is math, and I would love to see Tig Notaro show her work. Like, I just think she's amazing. I can feel my hair growing. It's so humid. It's time to wash out the blowout. Then I watched Tig, directed by Christina Goolsby and Ashley York, and that is a documentary about her. The thing that really launched Tig Notaro's career into something else was a comedy set that she did at Largo, which is this like famous comedy club in Los Angeles, days after she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And she opens the show by saying, "Hey, I have cancer." And it was just a huge moment in comedy. I mean, the way that she talked about it enraptured people. The audience is incredible. You can't film at Largo, so there's no footage of this, but you can listen to the comedy album. It's called Live. It reads as live. It is the best way to gain context into who she is, and it's so funny. She's so funny. I think she's so funny. At first, I didn't know how to feel about the documentary because of some of the narrative tools they were using with just like certain overlays or graphics or whatever. It felt like a little bit cheesy, but once we get into the actual story, I didn't care about that at all because I was so interested in what was happening in her life at the time. She really wanted to have kids, but she was single, so she went on her podcast and asked the people who were listening to her podcast if anybody would maybe want to be her surrogate, and that's how she found a potential surrogate. So it's also like about her trying to get pregnant and these complete strangers that she met. It's just really awesome. You also get to see and hear the story of how she meets Stephanie Allen, her now wife, and the way that she is integrated into this narrative, I think, was so well done and like really special. I also really loved watching her workshop jokes in preparation for another set at Largo, which would be the first time she was back there since she did her like iconic set that completely changed her career. So seeing her deal with the pressure of that, writing jokes, seeing what she finds funny, learning about her life, which is just as subversive as her comedy because she just has like the most out of the box thinking. It's great. I love it. And then the last Tig Notaro thing I watched was Tig Notaro, Happy to Be Here, directed by Tig Notaro. This was maybe my favorite special. There's one more I haven't seen yet. I really need to watch it. That came out kind of recently, like only a couple years ago. And this one is so ridiculous. Like, she did it again. She subverts it again. She plays with the audience again. There's not much I can say about it. It's just really fucking funny. If you're gonna watch a Tig Notaro special, watch this one first, I think. If if you're like, oh God, the backstory and stuff, like whatever, like watch this one first. It's great. I think every time she releases another body of work, it challenges what comedy can be. I think she's an innovator. I think she's a genius. I love Tig Norato. Okay, February. The first movie I watched in February was Sonic the Hedgehog. The first one. Directed by Jeff Fowler, because I wanted to watch the second one because I'd never seen it because the third one had just come out. And I literally didn't watch the other two. I just watched the first one. It's fine. I don't have a lot to say about it. I love Ben Schwartz a lot. I'm a huge Ben Schwartz fan. Laugh out loud moments, for sure. Jim Carrey's hilarious. Sonic the Hedgehog. Then I watched Companion, directed by Drew Hancock. And I didn't write things down after I saw it for the first time. I waited too long, so I forgot about a lot of stuff. But honestly, I want to watch it again. I will say, Sophie Thatcher, incredible actor. I have not seen Yellow Jackets. I really want to watch it. But I wasn't familiar with her work, and I hadn't seen Heretic yet either. It's on my list of things that I need to get on ASAP. So this was my first venture into Sophie Thatcher as an actor. I thought she did an incredible job. I'm unsure about how much people know about this movie from the trailer. I mean, it seems very secretive. Even the description doesn't give a lot away, so I won't. But it's about this companion named Iris, who's played by Sophie Thatcher, and her boyfriend, and they go away for a weekend, and then something absolutely terrible happens to one of the people there, and then they kind of have to fix their shit up. But it's a satirical thriller vibe, and I found it to be really funny in the parts that were meant to be funny. And it's essentially a social commentary. I mean, kind of a lot of movies are doing this recently, where you will be trying to make a satire about a thing, and you will get into the topic that you are talking about, and then when we want a little bit more about that topic, when we want a little bit more commentary, it kind of falls short a little bit. However, I will say with this movie, a bunch of shit happened that I was not prepared for. I was fully taken on the ride in this movie. I don't think that it didn't feel predictable to me. And I was really enthralled by it. And I love Sophie Thatcher's performance in this. I want to watch it again very badly. It's one of those movies where I'm I think I need it again. And it is, I think it's worth your time. Then I watched one of my favorites of the season, September 5th, and that is directed by Tim Fellbaum. It's about a hostage crisis during the 1972 Munich Olympics. CBS Sports was covering the Olympics, and then there was this hostage situation, and then CBS Sports began to cover the hostage situation, even though they weren't news.
I didn't say hostage right one time. I didn't say it right once. I said it 4 times, not one time.
Basically, all of the movie takes place in the studio setup that they have right outside of the Olympic Village. The performances in this are so grounded. It felt like a play. Sometimes movies watch like a play, and this was one of those times. You really got to sit in the tension with the actors and have time with what they were experiencing. I wish we got the chance to see the tone become a bit more dynamic, but I do recognize that it's tricky with this particular subject matter. I'm thinking about it in terms of Saturday Night, the movie about SNL that came out last year, where what I loved about that movie was there was so much tension and release and tension and release. And that is what's happening in September 5th as well. There's so much tension and release and tension and release. But what Saturday Night had that was an asset was the expectation of comedy. You're meant to laugh during that movie. There should be laughs. That's how we're releasing a lot of that tension. You don't really get that in September 5th because of how significant and serious the subject matter is. So even though we are experiencing tension and release, I'm not saying you're like this the entire time. It's still paced very well, in my opinion. It would have been awesome to be able to see the actors work with moments of levity more. I think that could have lifted the tone of the whole movie a bit more, but again, it's just hard with what we're talking about. The most fascinating thing for me about this movie, or one of the most fascinating things, was the question that they were asking of whose story are we telling? So while they're trying to cover the situation, they're talking about very real people, very real American athletes who have very real families that are watching. They also have the American public watching. The footage that they're getting could potentially be incredibly disturbing. So what is their moral obligation as journalists? What are the ethics? What is best practice? And how do we responsibly execute this? What do we owe the people that are watching, and what do we owe the people who were in the situation? It's a very delicate balance. Like, what are we going to cover? Which camera are we going to cut to? When this happens, what do we say? How do we talk about this thing? It's like, what is the general public entitled to, and how do we deliver it to them? I thought it did a great job of exploring all of these perspectives. A lot of the different characters kind of represented a different point of view in answering those questions, and never ended on a concrete answer, which I appreciated about it, because it is kind of open-ended, and I still think people are trying to navigate that today. But it was cool to see these people who everybody thought was like out of their depth try to overcome that. Solid movie. I really liked it. I think this is what we go to the theater for. It felt like me. It felt like a bit of me. And then I like don't even really want to fucking talk about this. I watched Captain America Brave New World. It was directed by Julius Ona. Like, you know what it is. You know what it's about. I didn't know this before I watched it, but apparently it took forever to make this movie. There was a bunch of reshoots. They had to like chop it up together. It like took forever. Maybe it was because of the subject matter. I don't know. I wanted this for Anthony Mackie so bad. I wanted this for him so bad. I wanted him to have his like Captain America movie. And it just was so flat. Okay, I got out of this movie and immediately I started thinking about why I loved Captain America Civil War. So no, not Civil War. Winter Soldier so much. Because it's one of my like probably top 5 in the entire MCU. I'm an MCU girly, by the way. I've seen basically every movie until Endgame like at least 3 times, some probably more. And then I've like been reasonable with catching up on everything else, but I'm not like all caught up with all the TV shows and stuff. But I did watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I'll talk about in a second. But Captain America and the Winter Soldier to me worked because even though there was so much plot, there was a lot happening and you had to pay attention in order to understand. In the end, it was really just about Steve Rogers. It was about a man who was becoming disillusioned to the people that he was working for, had to reconcile who he was with the Captain America that he wanted to be. A lot of things were stripped away from him. It was basically just him and like Scarlet Johansson, Black Widow. I do that all the time for a lot of the movie. And we're seeing him kind of like process this in real time. So even though there is a lot of story that's happening around it and it's very intentional and consequential to the next films, like we couldn't have had something as incredible as Civil War without Winter Soldier. It's really about Steve, and I wanted this to really be about Sam Wilson, and it wasn't. I think they started to do that with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which to be honest was not my favorite. I liked it better on the second watch than the first one, I'll say, but I was looking forward to this opportunity to explore his character more in this movie, and they didn't do it. Like, everything in this movie just happens and then we don't talk about it. The entire movie exposition. Things are just happening and then we're not talking about them. I don't think it's that Marvel's like scared to have this conversation. I mean, we started to have it in Falcon and the Winter Soldier about like being a black person in America, what it means to be a black man taking up the mantle of Captain America, because that's significant. And the certain things that happen in this movie, I'm like, how could these things be happening and we're not talking about that? It doesn't make any sense. Like, everything is...
That's unfair. God. She made those... I need to calm down.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. The next thing that happened, let's get some joy in our lives with a slasher flick. With a comedy slasher flick. Hard Eyes. Directed by Josh Rubin. Directed by a noise boy himself. I didn't know one of the noise boys be directing. I didn't know that. So when I watched this movie, I didn't know that he was a director. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then... You like really should. I love Dropout so much. I didn't know that he directed this. So I watched this movie having no idea. And then he makes a cameo towards the end of the movie. He's just kind of like, watch out. And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking Josh Rubin. And then the credits rolled and it said directed by Josh Rubin. And I was like, I like freaked out. I loved that he did it. This was good, solid fun. Hard Eyes is a slasher, like a comedy slasher flick about the Hard Eyes killer who kills couples on Valentine's Day. And it's made by the same people who did Scream, like the new Screams. And one of the lead actors that was in the recent Scream movies is the lead actor in this. His co-star is Olivia Holt. No matter how much I chop and punch, it's not as cool as kicking it with you. That Olivia Holt. It's good, stupid fun. It's better with friends. I saw it by myself. I wish I saw it with other people. There were some moments where I really giggled, and now like understanding that it was Josh Rubin, like the comedy in this movie made a lot more sense to me. There's a particular moment where they're kind of like hiding in the car, and there's a couple that's already in the car that they didn't see, and they were like in the middle of intercourse, and the two main characters are like having a very sincere conversation. It's like still kind of happening in the background. I thought that was really funny. There are other jokes in this that really made me laugh. Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. Then I went on a bit of a Suzan Pitt kick. So if you don't know who Suzan Pitt is, she is an artist, a visual artist and animator, and she has a bunch of short films that I watched on Mubi because I got a Mubi subscription. Like, it's $1 for 3 months, so you get to watch movies that like aren't really on other streaming services. They're like more difficult to find. And I watched 4 of her short films. I won't really get into all of them. My favorite was the first one I watched. It's called Asparagus, where this girl eats asparagus and then has this like psychedelic journey. Then it says a symbolic reflection on issues of female sexuality, art, and identity constructs, which like, yes, but it felt like something was happening to me, and I was just kind of like, whoa. It's difficult for me to explain it. I don't know what kind of art you would classify this as. I wonder if it's surrealist, I suppose. There are certain moments in the short film where you're looking at like these mixed media animations, so it's kind of like felt and like stop motion and something else. I just was so consumed by how many hours it must have taken to accomplish something like that. I think it's such high art and interesting. I was like fully blown away by it. I think it broke my brain. It was one of those things where like after I was done watching it, I was like, whoa. And it took me a second to realize that I really liked it, because it was just so like, it completely adjusted my palette. I don't think I'd ever watched anything really like that before. I just thought it was gorgeous, and it must have been so painstakingly done, and it all kind of exists in metaphor. I don't have my visual literacy in terms of things like this is not like, it's more difficult for me to articulate watching something like this, or like seeing a painting or seeing an animation that like has no words. However, it did really move me, and I really liked it. If you can get your hands on it, it's like 15 minutes. Watch it, let your brain explode. Then I watched Crocus, which is another short film of hers, and this was, I think, played before movies. This one was a little bit more silly. I laughed out loud. It's basically this woman's night routine, and it just feels feminist. You know, when you're watching something and you're like, this just feels feminist. She's showing her body and she doesn't care. It's about her pleasure. It's like sexy. Everything that Suzan Pitt does is a bit like winking and sly. It's fun. Like, I liked it. Then I watched her one that's called Jefferson Circus Songs. This one lost me a little bit because it involved a lot of practical effects on real humans, and I don't know, it just really lost me. But the parts of it that were more animated, or like claymation or stop motion or felt or whatever, I liked those better. Yeah, not much to say about that one. That one lost me. I didn't love that one. Then this actually might be my favorite. Joy Street. Either Asparagus or Joy Street is my favorite. Joy Street fucking rocks. It's like really dark though. It's a suicidal woman, sorry. And she's depressed with her life, and she goes from despair to renewal with the help of an unlikely spirit guide. Again, really weird, super fun. You can feel like the life returning to this woman as she goes on an adventure on Joy Street in this city block at night, and she's like going into these different places and kind of having like a renewal. It makes a lot of sense that they said renewal. It's a renewal. I just loved following her around. So Suzan Pitt, really worth it. Then, you guys, this was probably my favorite movie that I watched last season. I watched a movie called Shithouse. It was written and directed by Cooper Raiff, who's the same person who wrote and directed Cha-Cha Real Smooth, which is an Apple original movie that was produced under Dakota Johnson's film company, and she was the leading actress in that movie. When I watched Cha-Cha Real Smooth, I was like, this is a bit of me. This is like, so If you couldn't tell, my tastes are all over the place. Like, I watch a bunch of different things all the time. I like a bunch of different things. But sometimes you watch something and you're like, that's a bit of me. Like, if I was to be in a movie, which I would love. I've been acting my whole life. I would love to be an actor, like, for real. And this felt like that. I felt that way about Companion. I felt that way about September 5th. I felt that way about this. It's about this kid, Alex. He's a freshman in college. He's having a really hard time. And after like a failed attempt at a party at this infamous frat house called Shit House, he goes back to his dorm dejected, meets his RA, Maggie, and they spend the entire night together just connecting. I wrote down that this is maybe one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen. It's so visceral in its realism. Like, I've seldom felt like I've related to anything so deeply in my life. It's so sharp in its portrayal of college life, especially when you feel like you're bad at it, which I definitely felt when I first went to college. When he and Maggie are connecting on that night, it honestly feels like the epitome of what it is to like accidentally spill your guts to somebody you've only just met at school. There's such a specific vibe to that I think most people can relate to, where you're like, it is 4 a.m. and now you know everything about me. Like, how did that happen? It perfectly encapsulates that. You're watching it and you're like, oh my God, I feel it. My heart was like going to my screen. It was like burning for this movie. God, I loved it. Dylan Galula in this, who plays Maggie, is perfect. Like, I couldn't conceive of a person who would be better for this role than her. She was absolutely perfect. I was watching this movie. I was like, I know her. I know who that person is. I know who that guy is. He has like a kind of shitty roommate. I know who that guy is. Like, Dylan's performance was so grounded. It just felt like completely real, which I'm not saying that is the superior way to act in something. Like, not everything calls for that. But in this movie with this tone, I genuinely think it was perfect. It never felt like she was acting. Cooper's performance in this was also like so stunning. He has this sweetness about him that's in his performances and in his movies that like really attracts me to them. It kind of holds everything in the movie together. It acts as like a center of the film. He's also so funny. He's got such incredible comedic instincts. It's fucking crazy the way that I was laughing at this movie because of the most like uncomfortable real things. God, he's wonderful, and I want to watch everything he does. I'm excited for Hal and Harper. That's a TV show he's doing. I think Lily Reinhart is an executive producer on it and is also acting in it with him, and Mark Ruffalo plays their dad. So sign me up. Then I watched another movie that really felt like a bit of me. It was called My Dead Friend Zoe, and it was directed by Kyle Houseman Stokes. And I wasn't anticipating liking this movie as much as I did. I think it's also written by the director, and it is a semi-autobiographical but ultimately fictional story about Merritt, who is an Afghanistan war vet. She comes home and is experiencing some serious PTSD about the loss of her friend, her dead friend Zoe. And her dead friend Zoe is played by one of my absolute favorites, Natalie Morales. I love Natalie Morales. I love Natalie Morales so much. Literally anything she's in, I'm watching it. People have like auto-buy authors. She's one of my auto-watch actors. Like, if she's in it, that's why I watched the movie, honestly. And Merritt is seeing Zoe. She's having hallucinations of Zoe and having like real conversations with her as if Zoe was still there. I didn't expect the movie to have the vibes that it had, but it's kind of like my favorite vibes. It was funny. It was deeply personal and intimate. Natalie Morales has these incredible comedic instincts, and I think it lends to her ability to really listen well. She's really open in her performances, which makes her totally emotionally available even when she's playing a character that isn't. And she's so responsive in an electric way in this movie. And it was like a beautifully subdued performance by the lead actress, Sonequa Martin Green. Morgan Freeman is in this. He's playing the AA sponsor. And Ed Harris is in this. And it was a great performance by Ed Harris. Ed Harris plays Merritt's grandfather, who is experiencing Alzheimer's. And she is trying to help him because Merritt's mother wants to put him in a retirement home, but he has this like beautiful house by the lake and he doesn't want to leave. And he could easily have been this like one note angry war vet with a chip on his shoulder, but Ed Harris gave him something else. So like we really felt for him in his situation too. Yeah, the whole thing, I really enjoyed it. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I just didn't expect it to be what it was, and I thought it was lovely. And I was watching it, and I was like, I kind of wish this was a play. Like, I would love to see this on stage. And honestly, it's a motif, because I have the same thing to say about the next movie. The next movie I watched was Queen of the Ring, and it was directed by Ash Advilson. This is a true story about Mildred Burke, who was a single mother, and all she wanted to do was be a professional wrestler. But professional wrestling amongst women was outlawed at the time. She grew up in the South. She really, really wanted to do it. She was super determined. It's about her rise to success in the pro wrestling world and how she came to be what many consider the first ever $1 million female athlete. Mildred was played by Emily Bett Rickards, who is just amazing in this. That's my Felicity right there. I was an Arrow girly. Guys, I watched all the DC shows. I was that girl. And I remember watching Arrow and watching Emily Bett Rickards and being like, she's great. And I'm really excited for somebody to give her the opportunity to do everything that she can. And this felt like that. She's just so good in this. She has Mildred's physicality down so well. And it's not even just that she got really ripped for this role, because she absolutely did. But it's also just the way that Mildred carries herself in a room. She's a very outward, extroverted person and so ridiculously determined. And she has this real spark and real light. And Emily Bett Rickards just did a beautiful job. I think the gripe that I have about this movie is that the pace is moving really fast. So we don't always get to sit in moments of tension with people, and it feels like it's just going by really quickly. However, Emily Bett Rickards is such an incredible actor that she hits every emotional beat dead on, and you are with her the whole time. And I think that if she wasn't the person who was at the center of this movie, it wouldn't have worked at all. You wouldn't care about what was happening to these people. I think this movie was at its best when it was about the wrestling. I get why we had to incorporate a lot of Millie's romantic life into this movie, because it informed her wrestling. She kind of got tangled up in the personal and the professional, and it's a motif that goes through the movie. So I understand that we have to talk about it, but sometimes it felt like we were leaning a little bit too much on it, kind of in this is a Hollywood movie, so it has to be about the we have to have a romantic arc kind of vibe. And I don't think it needed it. I think we could have spent a little bit more time away from that and on the wrestling and the wrestlers, because the ensemble cast in this was really cool. There are a bunch of professional wrestlers who are in the ensemble, also just great actors. Deborah Ann Wool is in this, and if you don't know her from True Blood, maybe you know her from this clip of teaching John Bernthal how to play D&D.
You want to play D&D?
I mean, I'll try. I mean, what do you think? No, I'd be able to do it?
Literally right now.
Sure.
All right. You're walking through the woods. It's dark. It's at night. You hear a crack off in the distance. Something large stepped on a branch. What would you do?
The movie eventually becomes about these wrestlers and the alliances that they have and the loyalty that they have, and a lot of tension is resting on who is allied with who. And I think that could have been that much more effective if we got more with them during the movie. Also, the wrestling in the movie, the actual physical wrestling, was so cool. It looked so good. They didn't pull any punches, haha, but they really didn't, and it looked so real. It was super exciting. You got to feel the larger than life nature of the movie. I was thinking about it. I think it would really work on stage. Usually when I think that things read or watch like a play, I think that because there is a lot of room for intimacy, like I was saying with September 5th and stuff, this was the opposite. There actually kind of wasn't as much time spent in those moments, like I said before, but it was so big. The story is so huge that I think that the stage could support it really well. And I think that it would work incredibly. Ultimately, I'm just really happy that this story exists. I had a good time watching it, and it makes me so happy that we are in the position where we're actually telling these stories about these women, and they can keep getting better and better as we go along. I remember growing up and watching Southpaw and being I want to be in a boxing movie so bad. And I don't see them made about people who look like me. I mean, there was The Fire Inside that came out last year, but unfortunately I didn't love that movie, but at least it was made. At least this movie was made. It's fun. It's great. If you care about acting, and you want to have a good time, then just watch it for Emily Bett Rickards. The final 3 movies I watched in March. First one was Mickey 17, directed by Bong Joon-ho, starring Robert Pattinson, of course. It took me a while to collect my thoughts about this. I think I wasn't getting all of it while I was watching it. It's about this person, Mickey, who has had like the most terrible life. And he's like, we're supposed to kind of think he's a bit dumb and continues to put himself into situations because he trusts the wrong people that are really bad. And there is this program that is sending people to space, and he goes and signs up for the Expendables program, which basically means that he will be like a lab rat and a test dummy for stuff, and he can die over and over again, and then they just regenerate him. So we're watching Mickey 17, like the 17th version of Mickey, right? Robert Pattinson's performance in this is truly incredible. Like, I think he's one of the best actors that we've got, no qualms. Naomi Ackie is in here, and in the movie. Naomi, whatever. I love her. She was in Blink Twice, if you saw that. She was also, I'm pretty sure she was the one who played Whitney Houston in I Want to Dance with Somebody. And I think that her performance in this is wonderful. I love watching like British actors who were so obviously like trained so well. She has a monologue at the end of this movie that must have been so cathartic to say. She's just like yelling. She gets to be assertive and aggressive in this. She gets to be like kind of wild. Her energy in this is like so palpable and fun to watch. Like, I loved her in this movie. This movie kind of becomes about how we value a human life. And I think when it's engaging with those philosophical questions, it's awesome. And I think the whole thing was trying to, but there were certain moments that worked better for me than others. The planet that they go to has like a native species, and the way that they're treating this native species is like completely deplorable, of course. Sound familiar? That's what they're like trying to accomplish. Mark Ruffalo is in it, and he plays this like Elon Musk and Trump like failed politician billionaire guy to a ridiculously exaggerated extent that, I mean, I love Mark Ruffalo, but it didn't always work for me. But Toni Collette plays his wife, who's like the calculating wife of the terrible person who's really kind of the one pulling the strings, and she's deeply manipulative. She really worked for me. She was incredible. This movie was irreverent at points, but it's also like so deeply emotional at others. If you watch Parasite, then you're kind of like familiar with the way that Bong Joon-ho plays with tone in that way. I thought it was an interesting way to explore these topics in like a sci-fi, like near future way. I came around. I think it's worth your time. It's at least fun to talk about. All right, y'all. Then I watched our girl Io in Opus. I watched Opus, directed by Mark Anthony Green, starring Io Debris, love of my life. And honestly, like a lot of really great actors. Cast was stacked. John Malkovich is in this. He gives like such a zany performance. Like, it's so, at times it's so camp and ridiculous. Okay, so this movie is about a young writer, Io Debris, who receives an invitation from this huge legendary musician type, like somebody who has a lot of mythology around them. Think like David Bowie-ish, or like Lady Gaga-ish, or Elton John-ish, like someone who exists in a realm where people have crafted so many stories about them, and they've inhabited so many different kinds of people and characters and personas. So getting an invitation to this, which is kind of a listening party weekend for his next album, is huge, and she doesn't understand why she was invited. She's just like this young writer who's like really trying to catch a break. But she goes, and it becomes like a, there's something wrong with this place, we got to get out of here kind of movie. I think that this movie could have done a better job with what it was talking about. Again, like a lot of movies are kind of falling into this trap where like what it's about could have been dug into deeper. It kind of becomes this like cult movie. This is not a spoiler, I don't think. I think it's in the trailer. It kind of becomes this cult movie, and we're talking about the cult of like talent and fame and celebrity, which is interesting, but I feel like we don't spend enough time with all of that to really get as much out of it as we could have. At times it felt a little bit scattered, but it was always, to me, entertaining to watch and interesting to think about. I just wish we went a little bit deeper. When I was done watching the movie initially, I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, I kind of wish we got this, or I kind of wish we got this. But yeah, it's about the cult of celebrity and fame. It talks about a little bit about like the more talent you have, the more forgiveness you have, and like immortality or infamy in your work or your art. I also thought it was a really fun spin on the common final girl trope, which I am also like completely obsessed with. I want in on that so bad. I'm really curious to hear more people's thoughts about this particular movie. And then finally I watched Black Bag, directed by Steven Soderbergh. This movie is about Michael Fassbender, who plays a spy. He works for, British government intelligence, and his wife does as well, but then he becomes suspicious of his wife, and he kind of has to spy on his wife, and it turns into like if I don't figure this out, there's going to be a huge international incident type of thing. I didn't know if I was going to like it in the beginning. I wasn't sold on the tone. By the end of it, I thought it was great. Really psychological, the way I like. It's a lot of British actors. I feel like when you get a British movie with actors like this, especially if it's like a psychological vibe, you get a lot of like, we're sitting and talking to each other. Again, kind of feels like a play. Again, I fuck with that a lot. There are moments in this movie where they are at a dinner table, like a couple times. They are all sitting around a dinner table, and the way that these characters are talking to each other reveals so much about themselves in that slow, cool way. You get to spend time with them, learning about that. It's like a whodunit vibe. I don't know. I enjoyed it. Cate Blanchett just kind of like floats her way in and out of this movie. Like, her physicality in this movie to me is so specific. I don't have a lot to say about it. Fassbender had like such a committed performance. I was interested. I was in on it. I need to watch movies like this with subtitles though, because sometimes so much stuff is going on, and if I'm not reading it, my brain is not absorbing everything that they're saying, and I get kind of confused. I liked it. Whatever. All right. That's all, folks. Thanks for sitting with me. I don't know if you listened to this whole thing. I don't know if you listened to a little bit. If you skipped around, whatever's fine. Hope you got some solid recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. It helps a lot. You can follow me anywhere at ChrisSophia13. Chris with a CH, Sophia with a PH. And I will catch you next time with some more book content. Thank you so much for watching. Read a book.